The Forbidden's room. The halls of the star cruiser Valeth were quiet, filled with a soft hum of energy that never stopped. Lights along the ceiling pulsed gently, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Every room had a purpose. Every rule was strict. And one rule was repeated again and again. Do not enter the princess's preparation chamber. Luke, a young human soldier from Earth, had never seen a ship this advanced before. He had been assigned as a temporary guard for the royal area. No one explained much, only that he was to stand outside the royal preparation room, a place no. Other species dared to approach. Luke adjusted his uniform, feeling out of place. The other alien guards, tall, crystal-skinned warriors, kept their distance from the door. They looked at him with curiosity, even pity. One of them had whispered, "You're brave or foolish." Luke didn't understand. "It's just a door," he had replied. Now, hours later, he stood alone. The metal door in front of him was smooth, glowing slightly at the edges. From inside, he could hear something. Music? No, it was a hum, a voice. Soft and slow, like someone singing to themselves. Suddenly, the hum stopped. A few seconds passed. Then a voice came through the door. Clear, calm, and definitely not human. Human. "Are you still there?" Luke straightened. "Yes, Princess." "I'm standing guard as ordered." There was silence. Then she spoke again. "I'm about to undress." Luke's eyebrows raised. "Excuse me? You must not look. You must not speak. And you must not enter, no matter what you hear. Do you understand?" He blinked, unsure if this was some kind of alien test or ritual. "Still," he replied, "understood." Another pause. Then he heard the sound of something heavy falling to the ground inside. A long, dragging noise. Maybe armor or robes. Then came something stranger. A click. Luke looked at the door. The red lock light turned green. The door was now unlocked. "You? Princess?" He called out, confused. No answer. He turned to the other guards down the hall. But they were gone. A chill ran down his spine. The air around the door began to shift, almost like warm breath. He had a strong feeling he wasn't supposed to be there anymore. He took a step back. Then another dot, but then came the whisper. "Do not look, human. Please." Her voice wasn't commanding now. It was sad, afraid. Luke swallowed hard. He wasn't sure what was happening. Was she in danger? Was it a test of trust? Something primal inside him said, "Don't open the door." He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and turned around to face the other way. He didn't move. He didn't speak. Inside the room, he heard more fabric falling. A soft, slow rustling sound. Then the sound of glass or crystal, maybe jewelry, being placed on the floor. And then silence again. A minute passed. Then two. Then a whisper closer this time. Maybe just behind the door. "You did not look. You are not like the others." Luke didn't reply. He kept his eyes forward. The voice now sounded soft, almost touched. "You may leave, human. You have passed the first circle." He turned his head slightly. First circle of what? But there was no reply. The green light on the door turned red again. Whatever just happened wasn't normal. And Luke now understood why the other guards called him brave or foolish. Something more than a ritual was happening behind that door. And the princess. She wasn't just royalty. She was something else. Something dangerous. Or sacred. Or both. Asterisk the circle of trust. Luke walked away from the royal door, his mind spinning with questions. What had just happened? Why had the princess left the door unlocked? Why tell him not to look? And what did she mean by, "You have passed the first circle"? He reached the end of the hallway and found the alien captain's hall, with skin like black, glass and eyes that shimmered like silver stars. "You were told not to speak to her," the captain said coldly. "I didn't. She spoke first," Luke replied, standing straight. The captain stared at him for a moment. Then something strange happened. He nodded slowly, like he now respected the human. "Come, the High Circle wants to speak with you." Luke followed him, passing through 3 heavy doors and a long chamber filled with floating lights. In the center stood 5 beings, each different, each ancient-looking. They were silent, their bodies barely moving. A voice echoed in Luke's head without anyone speaking. "You were tested, and you did not break." Luke frowned. "Tested? For what?" A different voice answered. This one was female, calm but sharp. The princess must choose someone worthy to witness her truth. She asked for a human. He blinked. "Why me?" "Because your kind is new and untrained in lies." Luke didn't know whether that was an insult or praise. "What is this circle?" she mentioned. The lights in the room shifted. A hologram formed in the air, an image of the princess standing in a circle of glowing symbols. Her back was turned, her dress falling from her shoulders. Around her, floating symbols rotated slowly. One of the elders spoke again. Each circle tests trust. The first is the hardest, resisting temptation. Luke felt heat rise in his face. "You set that up?" "No, she did, by her will alone." He was silent for a while, then asked, "What happens now?" "You return, and you wait until she calls again." 3 days passed. Luke remained at his post outside the same forbiddance door. No one else spoke to him. The alien guards avoided his eyes. Meals came quietly. No orders, no updates, just waiting. On the 4th day, the door clicked open again. This time, no voice warned him. Instead, a single note floated out, a soft, musical tone, like a bell. Then he heard her footsteps. He turned slowly, half expecting something dramatic, but saw only her shadow fall on the floor beneath the door. "Enter," she said. The voice was different now. Not commanding, not testing. Warm. Luke stepped inside carefully. The room was unlike any other chamber on the cruiser. The air was soft and warm, like a gentle breeze. The floor was covered in soft glowing threads that pulsed beneath his boots. In the center stood the princess, tall, elegant, her skin glowing like moonlight, and her dress now replaced with a silver robe. She looked at him, not like royalty looks at a servant, but like a person looks at another person. "I asked for you," she said. Luke nodded. "Why?" She stepped closer. "Because you didn't look, even when you could have." He didn't respond. Her eyes studied his face. "I want to show you something," she said softly, "but only if you trust me." Luke frowned slightly. "I'm listening." She extended her hand. Without thinking, he took it. The room changed immediately. The walls melted into stars. The ceiling vanished. They were now standing on what looked like open space, but their feet were still on a surface. Around them, holograms spun moments in time, recorded memories, pieces of history. She spoke quietly. "This is my past, my curse, my secret." One of the images showed her as a child, standing among fire and rubble. Another showed her sitting alone on a throne, crying. Another showed her surrounded by dead warriors. She stood in the center, untouched, her eyes glowing. Luke watched silently. "You're the first I've shown this," she said. He looked at her, unsure what to say. Then she turned to him and whispered, "You're inside the second circle now, human. You can still walk away." But he didn't move. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, smiled. The princess's secret. The starlit chamber shimmered as if the universe had shrunk into a single room. Luke stood still beside the princess, his hand still gently holding hers. She hadn't pulled away. She hadn't said a word since showing him her memories. But the silence, it spoke volumes. She turned away and walked slowly to a small floating crystal. It hovered in the air like a fragile star, glowing softly. Her voice was almost a whisper now. "Do you know why they fear me, human?" Luke shook his head. "No. But I'm starting to understand. It's not because of who you are, but what they think you are." She touched the crystal. It responded to her touch, showing a younger version of herself. Her eyes back then were brighter, more innocent. "I was born with something they call the pulse," she said. "It's not a gift. Not here. It scares people. They say I could end worlds if I lose control." Luke stepped closer. "But you haven't," she smiled weakly. Yet the crystal changed again. It showed her standing on a battlefield, untouched, while others lay broken around her. Her eyes glowed, and energy poured from her hands. "I was only 12, she whispered. Luke felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Did you mean to?" "No, I was protecting my sister." She looked at him. Her voice cracked a little. "She died anyway." Silence filled the space again. Luke didn't know what to say. But he knew one thing: this wasn't just about powers or secrets. This was about pain, about loneliness. "How long have you been hiding it?" he asked softly. "All my life," she answered. "I can never laugh too loud, never feel too much. Anger, joy, even love, they all trigger the pulse, so they locked me in circles. Traditions, rules, I was told never to trust, never to choose." She turned toward him again, her eyes glowing just a little, but not from power, from tears. "But I chose to trust you." Luke looked at her, surprised. "Why?" She smiled again. "Because when I told you not to look, you listened." A soft hum began in the room, and lights circled around them. The third crystal, larger, darker, rose from the floor. "This is the third circle," she said. "The hardest one. Not for you, but for me." Luke stepped back a little. "What happens now?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes closed. The energy in the room shifted. The stars above turned darker, the air heavier. Then her robe began to unravel, not as clothing, but as a shield made of light. Beneath it wasn't skin, but patterns, marking scars of energy carved into her body, glowing lines moving like rivers across her form. Luke didn't flinch. He didn't look away. "Is this what you've been hiding?" he asked. She nodded. "They call me cursed," she said. "A weapon. A royal shame." Luke stepped forward. "But I don't." She stared at him. "I don't see a weapon." He continued. "I see someone who survived more than anyone should have. Someone who was forced to carry something she never asked for." The glow around her body dimmed. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing calmed. "No one's ever said that to me," she whispered. Luke offered his hand again. "Then let me be the first." She stared at it, then slowly, deliberately, took it again. As their hands touched, the dark stars around them turned gold. The room responded not to her power, but to her calm, and the third crystal shattered into dust. "You've completed the third circle." A voice echoed from above. Luke looked around, but the princess only smiled. "No," she said softly. "We did." Asterisk, what cannot be said. The golden light faded, leaving the chamber quiet once more. The shattered dust of the third crystal floated gently in the air like soft ash. Luke stood silently, still holding the princess's hand. She didn't let go. The room felt lighter now, but something deep in her eyes had changed. Her face looked more calm, but also more scared. Luke could feel it. "You're not afraid of your powers," he said. "You're afraid of what they'll do if they find out I passed the circles." She nodded slowly. They never expected you to make it this far. You were supposed to leave after the first, or fail in the second. Luke looked around. Who exactly are they? She stepped away, walking toward the edge of the glowing platform. Stars reflected in her eyes like mirrors of memory. The elders, the council, my own blood. Her voice grew colder. They built the circles not to protect me, but to trap me. If I ever trusted someone too deeply, they feared I might lose control. Luke frowned. But you didn't. You showed me everything. You stayed calm. She turned to him, her face filled with quiet anger. That's the truth they don't want to see. That control doesn't come from fear. It comes from trust. Luke's hands clenched. And let's tell them. Let's show them. Her eyes dropped. It's not that simple. Why not? She hesitated. Because you are not supposed to be here anymore. Luke's heart beat harder. What do you mean? They've been watching since you stepped inside the second circle, she sighed. The chamber shields were lifted. They know. And now they're coming. Before Luke could respond, the lights in the room flickered. A loud chime echoed, deep and sharp an emergency tone. The chamber's stars dissolved. The smooth floor darkened. Walls reappeared around them, cold and gray. She rushed to a console and touched the glowing interface. Her fingers moved fast, almost shaking. Guards are approaching, she said. Sealed armor. Orders marked containment. They're not here to talk. Luke stepped beside her. Then what do we do? She looked up, her voice full of quiet fire. We run. A hidden door opened behind the starlight curtains. The passage was narrow, dim, and filled with ancient markings. This path is only for royalty, she whispered. But you've earned your place. Luke followed without question. They ran through curved halls, lit by dim pulses of blue. Behind them, the heavy sound of armored footsteps grew louder, marching in unison, closer every second dot as they reached a junction. The princess suddenly stopped. There stood a massive statue, an alien warrior carved from obsidian. In its hands rested a staff. Glowing at the tip dot, she stepped forward and pressed her palm to its chest. The wall beside it cracked open, revealing a small circular room filled with old equipment scrolls, weapons, and one shimmering cloak. This is my sanctuary, she said. And my last shield. She threw the cloak over Luke's shoulders. It wrapped around him like smoke, then disappeared into his skin. What is this? He asked. A royal field, she said. They won't see you, not unless you speak. He looked at her. What about you? She smiled, softly but sadly. I have to stay. No, Luke said. You trusted me. Now trust me again. We both leave. The sound of boots grew louder. Got the door at the end of the hall began to melt open. She stared at him, torn between tradition and something new. Gash hoped. Luke extended his hand one more time. Let me protect you now. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she took his hand again, and the two of them vanished through the back tunnel together. Asterisk. Hunted by her own. The escape tunnel curved downward into the heart of the Star Cruiser, far away from the glowing halls of royalty. The air was colder here, older. The metal walls were cracked with age, pulsing dimly like tired veins. Number. Cameras. No guards. Just silence and the sound of their footsteps echoing in the dark. Luke moved carefully, the princess by his side. Her hand gripped his tightly, no longer with fear, but with purpose. How far does this tunnel go? He asked. She answered, without looking at him. To the roots of the ship. To the place even my council fears. A place no one dares enter. Luke raised an eyebrow. And you're taking me there? You're already deeper than anyone has ever come, she replied. Might as well see what they never wanted you to. He couldn't tell if she was joking or serious. But he followed. They reached a wide chamber, a dome-shaped room, filled with starlight mist and silver wires hanging from above. In the center stood something ancient, a massive chair, not a throne. A machine. Luke stepped closer. What is that? She spoke softly, like speaking of an old wound. It's called the Soul Cradle. My mother used it before she disappeared. Some say it listens to the deepest truth in a royal's heart. Others say it changes them. She touched it gently, and the machine glowed in response. I was brought here once as a child, she whispered. They made me sit in it. It showed them something they didn't like. What did it show? Luke asked. She looked at him. You. Luke blinked. Me? Not your face. Not your name. But a figure wearing Earth's uniform. A human standing beside me, holding my hand. She paused. They told me it was a glitch. An error. But it wasn't, Luke said. Double quotes. No. It was a warning. Or a future. She looked up at him. Eyes glowing faintly. That's why they hate you. That's why they're hunting us now. Because long ago, this ship saw you. Suddenly, the mist turned red. A soft alarm buzzed low, angry. They found the outer gate, she said, stepping back. They're close. Luke pulled her behind the old machine. How many? 4 royal guards, she whispered. Trained to disable, not kill, but only if I obey. Luke clenched his fists. And if you don't? They'll use the chains. Luke had seen those. Mind chains. Energy bands that blocked thought, memory, even emotion. He looked around. Any weapons? She shook her head. Only memory. Luke didn't wait. He stood tall, stepped out of the shadows, and shouted down the tunnel. She's not alone. The footsteps paused, then charged faster. The princess ran to his side. You don't have to do this. He looked at her firm. Yes, I do. From the mist, 4 figures emerged clad in shimmering armor, visors hiding their faces. One of them raised a palm. Return to your chamber, princess. You are unwell. The human is influencing your mind. She stepped forward. No, I see clearly now. You were wrong. You all were. Another guard raised his weapon. Luke stepped in front of her. I won't let you take her, he said. The guards paused. Then one of them spoke a voice the princess recognized. Step aside, Luke. The princess froze. No. Luke looked at her. What? The lead guard removed his helmet. It was her brother. You broke the law, he said. You trusted an outsider. You exposed the heart of our ship. She stared at him, heart pounding. You were the one who locked me inside those circles. You feared what I would become. I feared what we saw, he growled. That this human would change everything. Luke stepped forward. Maybe I will. The brother raised his weapon. And I'll stop you myself. But the princess suddenly raised her hand. And for the first time since her childhood, she let the pulse rise. Her markings lit up, glowing with silver light. The air around her cracked. Energy shimmered in waves, but this time not from fear. From choice. Her brother stumbled back. You can't control it. But she could, because Luke hadn't run, because he stayed. And now she had nothing left to hide. The one she chose. The air around her cracked like lightning. Glowing energy flowed across her skin, forming bright symbols on her arms, her neck, her chest, each one pulsing in rhythm with her breath. The guards stepped back, shielding their eyes. Even her brother lowered his weapon, fear now replacing anger. But Luke didn't flinch. He stood at her side. Calm. Trusting. The princess's eyes were full of light, now not wild or angry, but focused. For the first time, she was fully in control. You were wrong, she said to her brother. The pulse isn't a curse. It's me, and I choose what I become. Her voice echoed through the chamber. The walls shimmered, the ancient machine behind her glowing like it recognized her finally. You trained me to be silent, she continued. You locked me in traditions, circles, fear, but you forgot the most powerful thing of all. She looked at Luke, her voice softened. Someone who sees me as more than a weapon. Luke stepped closer. You're not a weapon. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and you're not alone anymore. She turned back to the guards. Go back. Tell the council I'm done hiding. I'm done obeying. I will walk in. The open, and he walks with me. The guards hesitated. Her brother's jaw tightened. You're willing to throw away your crown for a human? She looked at Luke again. No, she said gently. I'm saving it. She raised her hand, and instead of attacking, she released her energy. The pulse flared, then disappeared like dust in sunlight. Warm, calm air filled the room. Her markings faded. The chamber light softened. Power without destruction. Strength. With peace. Her brother fell to one knee. Not in defeat, but in awe. You mastered it. She stepped forward and placed her hand on his shoulder. I accepted it. Luke watched silently. He had never seen something so powerful and so gentle. Later, the council met in silence as the princess entered the great hall, not alone, but side by side with a human. Gasps echoed, but no one stopped her. She didn't ask for permission. She gave them a choice. I have walked through all the circles, she said, and the one who stayed with me through them all is this human. He didn't look when I asked. He didn't run when I glowed. He stood when others would kneel. She turned to Luke. Her voice was soft but clear. And now, I choose him. The council murmured. Confused, uneasy. A long pause followed. Then, from the far end of the room, a voice rose. Old. Wise, the elder stood. The rules were made out of fear. But fear no longer lives here. He bowed his head. So let a new circle begin. On the balcony of stars. Luke stood beside her, looking out into the endless galaxy. The stars sparkled like fireflies in a sleeping sky. Do you regret it? He asked. She smiled. No. Not even choosing me? She turned, her eyes filled with light, but this time, not from the pulse, from joy. I chose you the day you didn't peak. He laughed. That's going to be hard to explain to Earth Command. She leaned her head against his shoulder. You'll find the words, she said. But for now, stay. And he did, not as a protector, not as a soldier, but as the one she chose.